figure. Oh, crap. Oh,
You want me to jump out?
Silence,
Yes,
everybody,
go.
and welcome to the Court of Bollocks. I am Dr. Bollocks. I'm your moderator tonight. I will not take any crap from anybody, and if I tell you to shut up, you will be silent immediately. And that goes for you wasters in the chat as well. Welcome to the Mad Dodge stream. I am in charge tonight, and I will not take any form of non-discipline. I will not take any form of misbehavior, and I will be giving everybody a fair chance to speak. And the subject tonight is euthanasia. Do we need it? And on the panel we have Mad Dodge, which is understandable since it's his channel. We have Hot Mama, also known as Tigerlilly. We also have the rather splendid Mr. Quinn. We have Memes of Distraction, or Furries of Degeneracy. We also have the incredibly calm and collect MC. And we did have Miss B, but she's gone and let me down as usual, so fuck you. So, who would like to speak first?
Yeah,
I don't mind speaking.
Speak, lady, speak.
Yes, sir. Oh, my opinion, with people that are terminally ill or in a vegetative state that are suffering slow, agonizing, painful death with no possibility of recovery should have the choice of euthanasia. Just existing, unable to breathe on their own, hear, see, speak, move, in constant pain, bedridden, forcing them to live a life like this is cruel and unfair, I feel. Just having them take pills pretty much stoned and numbed in a room all day would be a horrible existence. I know I would personally wouldn't want to live like that or have a loved one live this way, and I would want their suffering to end sooner than later. And also, if I were in this situation, I would rather have the time, money, resources spent on someone else that has a better chance of existing in life than I would. Hell, they could even take my organs and help them if they're usable to help them live, longer. And I think helping them to die rather than living such a horrible existence would be more compassionate than just prolonging it. That's my feelings on it.
Wonderful. Right. Who's next?
Well, as no one else is volunteering, I'm going to start with a simple one.
You're wrong.
Oh, shut up, woman. How can, honestly, people, let's be fair, how can we make Mads suffer yet another Red Sox ass kicking and not give him the option of suicide? I think that is cruel and unusual punishment.
Too soon.
Rubbish.
In the description.
All right, so that was your open.
That was your immediately.
You open
right,
with the Red Sox.
Reams is getting a 5-minute penalty for that. Right, Mad Dodge, it's your turn.
All right, so the state of Oregon passed what is it called? It is called Death with Dignity Act. They passed it in 1997. As of 2017, when they took the numbers down, a total of 1,967 people have had the prescriptions written. See, in Oregon, well, in the entire United States, euthanasia is illegal. Why? Because it's immoral. All the states agree upon this. Now, the Death with Dignity Act gives the doctors a way to prescribe like cyanide or what other death pill you want, and you have to administer it yourself. If you're in a vegetative state, you cannot apply for this. Your family members cannot do it on your behalf. You have to be of clear mind and body to apply for this, kind of like when you write your will. Out of the 1,900 people that have gotten the prescription, only 1,275 have actually taken them. So people tend to go backwards on this. Not all the time, obviously, not even 50%, but quite a few have backed out and reconsidered. And they probably reconsidered because, one, there's a religious aspect. If you commit suicide, you can't go to heaven as far as the religious aspect goes. I don't necessarily subscribe to that. But the fact remains that you are doing more harm to your family and everybody else around you by committing suicide. Now, if with the Oregon law, a doctor, you have to have been told that you only have 6 months to live, and you have to you go through a 15-day waiting period, then you apply, then another 15-day waiting period, and then they give you the medication. So that's already a month out. So you got 5 months to live, supposedly. Doctors can be wrong. There's lots of cases where you're told you have 6 months to live, you have a terminal illness. Suddenly they come out with a new treatment for it, prolong your life another 5 or 10 years. If you're just going to off yourself immediately because, oh my God, I can't, there's no cure at all, then you're taking away the ability to actually find a cure. Why not go through a test for other prescriptions or whatever, other medicines that would help other people instead of just taking a cyanide pill? There you go. I think I went longer than everybody else, so I'm done.
Considerably too long. That's a 5-minute penalty for you too, Mad Dodge. Right. MC, I think you're up, mate.
Okay. Look, there's a difference between being in a vegetative state, okay, and in the United States, all they have to do is, if you're in a vegetative state, is just declare that they're not going to do anything to save you. All right. So for as far as that goes, that isn't doctor-assisted suicide. That's just saying, okay, we're not going to do anything to save you. Now, this is kind of a gray area, because some people say that people are in a vegetative state, but they can breathe on their own. They can do a lot of things on their own, or seem to do, from a bodily function capability, right? But at the same time, they need assistance being fed, just like a quadriplegic needs assistance being fed. They can't do it on their own. So are we basically now saying that it's okay to off every quadriplegic? That it's not okay to do this? And the second thing is, when you start dealing with doctor-assisted suicide, why does the doctor have to get involved? Why do you need a doctor involved? Okay, why do you need anybody else involved at all? People off themselves and commit suicide all the time, without the use of a doctor, without the use of a quote-unquote professional. All right, they're able to find ways to kill themselves. Why do you have to involve somebody else in your death if it's your decision to kill yourself?
Well, what if they're unable to do it themselves and they want to? I think people should have the right to choose, the right to die, just as much. If they really want to try to live, have that right as well, with help.
No, you haven't spoken, so go ahead, Memes.
Oh, no, I had a 5-minute penalty, so I was just waiting. But this may seem kind of weird, but in general, I tend to agree with MC on this. And here's the reason why. Because MC was saying there's a difference between, all right, literally you have stage 3 or 4 lung cancer. It's like you got 6 months to live. That is a different scenario versus somebody you may basically be in a coma. I'll be straight up. I worked with a dude that was in a coma for 6 months of his life. He was in a horrible car accident. He got all types of fucked up. I mean, don't get me wrong. He made a lot of poor life choices as well early in life and shit like that. But here's the thing. He got out of it and he was actually freaking working. He was actually able to contribute to society and like do a job and actually like help out and be constructive. And it's just like, if basically as soon as you start giving the power to different individuals to just simply take life, and depending on how it's written, it all comes down to legislation. Because I'll be straight up, a number of years back, we tried to pass that in Massachusetts. 58% of the folks supported putting it up for a vote. It was put up for a vote. It was defeated 51 to 49%, folks saying, you know what? We don't really feel like this law makes sense for us. And that was a slight majority, but it was still the majority. And what it came down to is, I had a lot of progressive friends and they were pushing hard for this. But when you actually read the way the law was written, you could essentially be having like one of the shittiest months of your life. And upon 2 doctor's visits, after that, you can basically end your life within about a month. And it's like, it seemed too loose. That's why I don't think we passed it.
Well, yeah, I'm talking about people like no chance whatsoever to live. I'm not talking about if there's, a certain percentage, like if there was a chance, that's great. But I mean, I'm talking about people that are suffering with no chance at all of surviving, that are just suffering. To me, just seems very cruel to force them to live a life like that. If there's absolutely no chance.
May I pose a question?
Yeah.
Are doctors supposed to heal the sick? Because this is going completely contradictory to what a doctor's mission is. A doctor's mission is to heal you, to save your life, not administer a death pill. In the state of Oregon, it is a pill that they give you and send you home with. Now, what if you're one of the few people that decided not to take said pill? What if a child finds said pill? What if the child ingests said pill? I mean, there's all sorts of scenarios here where this can go wrong, handing people cyanide tablets.
It's a biological weapon. Or
Well, no, I
chemical
think,
weapon, rather.
well, they should do it in a place, you know, private without kids or anything. I don't know, set it up in such a way. I don't mean go home with these pills, where, you know, where kids can get it.
I agree there, but the other thing to remember is the moment you take responsibility for that pill, then its use is your responsibility. I'm not suggesting that, you know, because the kid's dead, we should ignore it. No, 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 not even slightly. That child had its life taken from him because of the stupidity of the person who was given the pill. Now, my point is, with suicide, is it's actually a fairly simple one, really, and this is more targeted towards MADDS than anyone. Who owns your life? Do you believe the state owns your life, sir? And I'm going to remind you, libertarian. Your move.
No, I do not believe the state owns my life, but I also don't believe that a healthcare professional should be given the guilt of knowing that he's helped 1,900 people commit suicide. That's not really suicide. He's handing them the pills. That's got to weigh on his conscience. Kind of like the same thing when you, and it's a firing squad. Only one gun has a real bullet, but they all of them carry the guilt because no one knows who actually pulled the trigger. Well, that doctor knows he pulled the trigger.
Go ahead.
All right. But the point with this is you're working on it just coming from a doctor. What about the person's right to choose whether they live or die? After all, don't get me wrong, the pill idea it's got its problems and is acceptable, but your body, your life, correct me if I'm wrong, but surely it should be your choice, not a government mandated choice. Your personal choice.
It's a postpartum abortion.
Well, why? Hold on a second. How do you know the person isn't insane?
That's where things start to go a little bit that's where things go pear-shaped in all situations, because after all, technically anybody who's choosing to die is insane. That is an arguable point, yes. But the thing is if a person can pass a psychological test up to, but not including the suicide point, does that class them then sane? And at that point, does that mean they should have the right to choose whether they live or die?
I can't speak to the laws in the other states regarding physician-assisted suicide. I can speak to the Oregon law because that's what I was looking up before this debate. And the Oregon law does not cover a psychiatric visit. What they treat it as a doctor's appointment. They go in. You need to have two different doctors say yes, they have this terminal illness, and then. There's not even a list of doctors that will do assisted suicide. You have to actually go out and find the doctor that will do it. You have to actively seek these pills out. There's no list or database.
No, Matt, wasn't there a doctor? Was it Dr. Kevorkian?
Yep.
Or something before?
Yes.
Where was he from?
Detroit.
Is that where he operated?
Yep.
Right.
And he himself was a doctor, but he was also a coroner.
That seems like a conflict of interest.
And furthermore, he went through the point of creating a machine, all right, and then would hook people up to it, then they were supposed to push the button to commit suicide. And in one instance they have on camera, he basically says he does it himself. I'll do it myself. And he basically kills the guy by pushing the button. And surprise, surprise, he went to jail.
No, it's supposed to be self-assisted, not doctor.
Why do you have to involve anybody else? And when you start talking about a vegetative state now, all right, there's no way from using the idea of, okay, can you talk to a psychologist and get them to agree or get them to say, yes, you're sound mind and body? How are you going to do that if a person is in a vegetative state at the time? And the other thing about this is that you're denying the ability of medicine moving forward. Yes, we can't treat certain cancers today, but we couldn't treat almost any cancers 50 years ago. All right. Well, now cancers such as non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, right, is 95%, not 95% relatable. I mean, where they can treat it, they can cure it 95% of the time. So, I mean, the idea is that okay, what's going on today versus what will happen tomorrow, or even the very next day. I mean, it's not the same. So how do you know that you're not this person's not offing themselves when the very next day there might have been something that could have saved their lives and they wouldn't be in this kind of pain?
No. It's in President Trump. He signed like the Right to Try Act. So basically, he was removing like certain potential loopholes, because I mean, there's a lot of liability that can go into that if you're doing experimental new procedures. The thing is, we don't necessarily know how well they're going to work, but it's like if person's in that position, should they have the right to do something that maybe they're not sure if it's going to be successful? Because at least you're giving the person the ability to choose. And you know what, dude? Sometimes those save people's lives, and then we actually discover, and like MC was saying, we do help move medicine forward. So, I mean, there's definitely a strong argument there.
Are there any cases where someone actually, waited instead of, I guess, trying to off themselves and there was a cure? Like, did this actually ever happen?
Are you ever going to report that you were thinking about offing yourselves and didn't off yourselves and now they're better? Yeah, there's lots of cases like that when you think about it. Now, is there a documented medical case where people are like, you know what, I'm going to do doctor-assisted suicide, and then said no? Well, doctor-assisted suicide is basically a relative terminology. I doubt a study's been done on that.
That's what I'm asking.
I mean, outside of the Dr. Kevorkian case, I don't think we really have any data. And remember, like MC said, it didn't really seem to end well.
Well, the Dr. Kevorkian case, quite frankly, is a special case. Let's be perfectly frank about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not what's happening in states, like Oregon. I'm not sure what other states have assisted suicide actually written in law. I remember in '97, I wasn't old enough to vote, obviously, but I remember my parents arguing about it. It was a very heated debate in Oregon when they passed that law in '97.
Even today, there's only a handful of states that allow any kind of assisted suicide.
But go ahead, the pro side. We've been kind of monopolizing the arguments here. Go for it. Hit us back.
All right. Well, the thing is you're talking about doctor-assisted. If that is all we're actually going to be discussing as part of it, then I may have slightly different views. But if we're actually just talking the right to choose your own life or death, I truly and strongly believe it should be the human right. We should have the opportunity to decide if we feel that we are no longer of use to humanity, or are in such a situation that we do not want to be here anymore. We should have the right to end our lives. At the end of the day, our lives belong to us, not the state, not the laws, us.
I suppose, but I mean, yeah, suicide's illegal. If you fail at committing suicide, you'll probably end up in an asylum for a short time. But if you're successful, what are they going to do? Arrest your corpse? I mean, you already kind of have that right.
Very true. The point is the how am I going to put this? The way the rest of the family is also going to be looked at. If it's legalized, then at that point it becomes a choice thing. And I'm not trying to suggest that everyone should have the right to just kill themselves willy-nilly. I fully accept that they may well need to actually go in for psychological evaluation and things like that. I'm not trying to suggest everyone can just walk around blowing their own brains out, etc. No. But if a person is truly in that bad a point in their life, they should be able to commit suicide and have no detrimental legal effect to their family, etc. Because, well, like I said, my body, my choice.
Well, when you say that there's a detrimental effect to the family, okay, what are you referring to? Because the family's going to be affected in many times in a negative manner, regardless. All right, that has nothing to do with the law or the legal system whatsoever. It has to do with just the way people are.
True, but there's the embarrassment and just the looks that people will be given to the people of the person that has committed suicide. There will be.
Shouldn't.
Sorry,
No. I went to cut you off. I'm surprised Bollocks didn't yell at me. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, that's an extra 10 minutes.
Oh, crap.
Carry on, Mr. Quinn.
Okay, right. As I was saying, the point is that humanity looks down upon the families of those who commit suicide, as well as the people that actually attempt or succeed in the suicide. That shouldn't be the case. The point is who the hell thinks that they have the right to declare what someone can and can't do concerning their own physical existence?
Okay.
I feel that is what's wrong.
Okay. Well, why is that necessarily wrong? And hear me out. The reason I asked that question is that yes, society does look askance toward the families of individuals. Why? Because there can be genetic factors that influence people's brain chemistry, all right, to make them more susceptible to committing suicide. So that family is going to be looked upon as askance just from the way that we as human beings have evolved, worried about whether or not that's a gene, all right. We call it a gene today because we know genetics a little bit better than we did in the past, all right. But that's why you're always going to get this, and that's perfectly normal. So how are you going to erase this stigma from society? Unless you sit up there and turn society over, which means the state, in some way or form, right, is going to be making these life and death choices for individuals. I understand what you're saying, that people commit suicide. I understand that that the families are going to be affected or from a societal standpoint. But there's one, it's perfectly normal for that to happen, and two, there's nothing wrong with it. To say that there's something wrong with that, I disagree with wholeheartedly.
What I'm saying is wrong is the fact that it's not considered acceptable for a person to choose the moment of their death if they so wish. That's the key point to my arguments, is that you are taking away someone's human right to make the self-decision.
Hang on, before we go any further, sorry, I'm see to cut you off there. I'm thinking of a situation there that Mr. Quinn brought up, but I can see the other side of the coin, which is there is always that risk of somebody supposedly taking their own life with assisted suicide under the pretense that they were terminally ill and wanted to die, where you've got a mischievous relative who actually just wanted them out of the way. I mean, how would you feel in that sort of situation, Mr. Quinn?
See, the point is, at that point, it's not the individual's choice because they've been coerced into it. At that point, that is valid as a murder charge because they have, well, okay, manslaughter charge, because after all, they were the ones that have either talked the suicider into the action or at very minimum haven't attempted to talk them out of it.
Wait a minute here. You're playing both sides against the middle here. Either it's their decision and their responsibility, or it isn't. Either they're able to make this decision or they're not.
What he's saying is you want to make sure there's no coercion in there, like somebody, like if you have like an elderly relative that's being pressured upon by somebody who may benefit from the passing of some individual.
Yeah, you know, the will and life insurance policy. Yeah, that never happens at all.
To be fair, the Massachusetts Death with Dignity, I've actually been reviewing it while we've been on here. I probably should have done that earlier, but they actually did account for that because it says under Bill H 1194, basically, where is it? They can't be directly related to them and basically benefit from any of like the inheritance or any financial gain from that. It should also not be from the healthcare facility where they're at. And they basically do cover several other factors there. But it's just the way it is, it only comes down to can reasonably be assumed that they shall not make it another 6 months. And maybe I've watched far too many episodes of House, man, but just getting a second opinion and just getting that out there. And I think we have the technology where we can actually like validate on more levels to try to be more accurate with that. But the way it was written at the time, it's like if somebody's having one of the shittiest months of their life and stuff, it's like, I just remember at the time, it's like, I just don't think I can support this. Like life is precious, man.
Okay. So we're talking now additional pressure. We're saying that someone gets pressured into this. Who determines what's pressure? Who determines whether or not the pressure was applied or not applied? Somebody else has to be doing it. Not even the individual gets to decide that because they're taken out of that equation entirely.
So the legislation isn't that great.
Well, you're talking about. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to just clarify a little bit. The Oregon law in '97. There needs to be 3 people witnessing, before they will actually progress through to get the pills or whatever. 2 of them can be family members, but 1 cannot be. You have to have an independent third party come in as well. So, I mean, they had that type of safeguard in Oregon also. And go ahead, MC. I just wanted to clarify that before we move too far.
In that safeguard, is that really a safeguard? All right, because the person that you're getting as a third party is going to be of the idea of if they're in this kind of a situation is they don't care if the person kills themselves or not. If they have no connection whatsoever, they're always going to agree in the affirmative. You're basically setting a situation where that one's always a yes. When would it ever be a no? All right, what rationale are you using for that third party to make that decision? All right, somebody who doesn't give a shit. I mean. It's a slippery slope when you start playing this game of saying, well, no, you can't get the people that are being influenced and pressured into it, because what is pressure to one person and what a pressure can be applied, all right, depends on so many different factors. We are not single organisms. We're social creatures as well. And the ability of some people to stand up to certain types of pressure changes from time to time, from place to place, and circumstances to circumstance. Why do you need, and I still go back to my central thing, why do you need someone else if it's personal and you're trying to take care and trying to off yourself? Why do you need assistance? Why do you need someone else to help you? What you're even there, to be honest, the way I see it is you're looking for someone to affirm that, yeah, your decision, you're making the right decision for yourself. You're not even, you're just looking for affirmation of the decision that you're trying to make, saying, look, I want to do this. And I think I'm looking for someone to agree with me.
Well, yeah, absolutely. That'd be like me being, called up for jury duty for a murder trial where the guy might get the death penalty. They ask me, hey, are you in favor of the death penalty? I say no. They're like, okay, dismissed, right? That's what the family would do. Hey, what do you think about assisted suicide? Well, I'm opposed to it. Okay, well, we'll find somebody else to help us out. That's basically what you're saying, right?
Yes. In that sense, yeah. So, I mean, it's a slippery slope when you start adding other people to what's supposed to be a quote unquote personal decision.
I just, by the way the legislation was wrote, it's like within 30 days you can be like, I'm in a shitty spot and everything, and just it just seemed way too loose to me.
Can I play devil's advocate for a moment, since I did pick on poor old Mr. Quinn before, which would be, as MC has just said, there should be no situation where somebody cannot off themselves if they so desired, which is if you want to kill yourself, that's fine. But what about those people with those terminal illnesses or some kind of cognitive defect, which means they cannot physically end their own lives if they wanted to, and would actually need someone to help them commit suicide? MC, how would you respect their decision?
How do you know what their decision is? You're making the decision for them. Then it's not their decision, is it? It's not personal anymore.
Well, I'm assuming they actually still have the ability to say, yes, I want to die.
Okay, how are you going to determine what kind of pressure has been applied to them?
You're again assuming that there might be internal pressure coming from the family.
All right. Once again, you've got to find some way to this has to be communicated that this person wants to die, right? That they have made the determination that they want to die. And now I'm making a distinction here, all right, between people that have a want to die versus people that say do not resuscitate. Two different situations. Okay. So when you're talking about wanting to die, if someone's in a vegetative state, how do you know what their will be? You'll never know what their will is. So you can't sit up there and say that the person in a vegetative state is ever going to get that. So what are you talking about? Are you talking about the person who is quadriplegic or something like that?
Someone with motor neuron disease, or maybe multiple sclerosis, or an ability so that the brain is still active but the body is basically fucked.
Like bedridden.
At that point, we're legislating morality.
Okay, well, they can be bedridden. How do you know that there won't be? How does that person know that there won't be a cure for his disease or her disease?
Well, maybe they don't want to wait that long. Maybe their suffering is so great they just don't want to carry on anyway.
Well, I understand.
That's what I'm talking about. Like when I'm for euthanism, like if there's no absolute way for them to get through it, why make them suffer like that?
They're not being made to suffer. I'm not saying that they're not suffering, but no one's making them suffer.
You are by making them live.
Well, I'm saying you should give the person the right. However, it could also be argumented if you're supposed to follow the law, if suicide is illegal, then basically you would be breaking the law.
Which is why my argument is the law itself should be changed. I'm not suggesting that everyone has the right. Everyone that wants to should just go and kill themselves. I even accept the fact that doctors may have to be involved in said decision, but the decision itself still should be the right of the individual, not the state.
All right. Or if they're force feeding you, that's one thing. But then again, how are you going to determine somebody in that state whether or not they're of sound mind? If they're in so much pain, if a person is under so much pain and everything, that's already a form of duress, is it not?
Yes.
So they're making a decision not as an informed decision, but a decision that's under duress.
What about the giving the rights of attorney to other? I believe that's the term in America, where basically they could tell someone else their decision, make it clear, and that way, if the situation gets to the point that the person would not want to be around, the said individual with rights of attorney can go, well, this is the person's decision, there you go, deal with it.
Basically, you signed your life away to somebody else for them to make that decision.
Well,
and then it's okay for them to come back and say, you know what, the decision is that you decided to die. Here, I've got a gun. I'll help you out. Bang.
Well, no, and this is probably counterproductive to my own argument, but Quinn has a point because, like, if I got in a car wreck and I was freaking in a coma, my wife has the power of attorney, right? She's already making the decisions for me.
Well, she's making decisions along the lines of do not resuscitate or not. She's not making decisions, and yes, some of those decisions can result in a life or a death. I'm not denying that, but that's a whole lot different than doctor-assisted suicide. That's not the same thing.
Should it be a communal thing? Like, is that what we're really arguing about? We don't want folks that maybe just want to do something hastily because they might be depressed. Because a lot of the ways the law is written, it's written so that depressed individuals can't just do it. Basically, it's supposed to be like, if you know that basically your life in the next few months is going to end and you have loved ones that basically can accept that, and you could actually go through, I mean, just social pressure helps keep us stable in a respect. It keeps us just being able to interact with one another to survive. So if actually the community, what if it was like literally like a living funeral, like a memorial for somebody? Like, if you know, because you're probably not going to have all your friends around you bidding you goodbye if they're like, no, dude, you're just at a fucking low point.
So
Like,
so you would
self-policing.
basically you want another star chamber where people float around and people scream renew right as they get blown up.
I am not getting that reference. It sounds like it's from a game that I probably should have played.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I was getting a bit lost there. Means for a minute I honestly thought you meant a community decision if you could actually die, because with any sort of decision by the community, by the time that decision had been taken, they probably would have died of old age anyway. So
Yeah.
I think maybe the idea, if there was going to be a choice of allowing somebody to die, it would probably be better to be restricted to very, very close family, immediate siblings, or maybe even a compassionate doctor. But then we all know what doctors are like these days, so that's probably not even a good idea.
Well, that depends on your definition.
Yes, I'm just trying to make sure that everybody's views here are as clear as possible. I don't want anybody in the chat getting confused. There's a lot of thick fuckers in there tonight.
My reference for memes who obviously didn't catch the reference was Logan's Run.
Logan's Run, yes.
Well, no, and I think that's a good pivot point a little bit, because eugenics is a part of this conversation as well. What about the doctors forcing somebody to die, like that child in the UK where they wanted to move him to get a special treatment in the United States, and your healthcare services said, nope, can't do it. They made him sit there until he fucking died. What about stuff like that? What about doctors actually forcing the issue and not actually just being, I don't know, quote unquote, compassionate as you can be, handing out cyanide pills?
Well, that's an interesting. I'm going to put that to the for side first. So if Mr. Quinn or Hot Mama would like to speak first.
Well, I think one of the problems we've had with a lot of this discussion is that people keep bringing up the doctor-assisted suicide, but given the situation with this child, the parents wanted the child to live, and yes, it could be argued nobody gave the child a choice, nobody sat it down, nobody asked any of these questions. That is true. That's true. I don't know for definite, but it's not an unreasonable assumption in this case. Now, should they have done that? No. At the end of the day, when you're a child, your existence more or less belongs to the parent. Yes, people can argue that. Yes, people can make the points that that takes away from their human rights, blah, blah, blah. But you are responsible for your child. The choice should have been the parent's choice, not the government's choice. Again, we're going back to the...
You're asking them to spend money.
But they wanted...
Well, Mr. Quinn, I think you actually I just came to the point in Bill 1194 where I'm not sure if they actually even put the whole law on, thinking back, but I remember it took me a while to read through the dang thing. But all right, Section 10, family notification recommended, -- not required. I think that may have been part that I was really not a big fan of. Because at that point, doesn't it kind of go to like, I don't know, is it the individual, is it the government at that point? Because having no family, like, recommendation about letting them know that it's like, this is your choice, this is what you're doing now.
Again, we're back to whether or not the government, and I'm going to use that term because obviously state and federal doesn't apply on my side of the pond, but if the government have the right to make that decision, can you honestly say that you are comfortable knowing that the government is in control of your life to that degree? Names?
Yeah, no, I'm just reading it basically the way it was written. It said the attending physician shall recommend that a patient notify the patient's next of kin of the patient's request for medication pursuant to this chapter. A request for medication shall not be denied because a patient declines or is unable to notify the next of kin. Because I just remember when I was looking over it, I'm like, there were just some things in there that I'm just like, this doesn't seem right. This seems very rushed.
That's the problem, is people do rush through these things. But yeah, going back to the thing with the child, like I said, I don't think it was right for the government to take that decision away from the parents. They had chosen to go to the other country and pay the money to give that child a chance. That should have been allowed. The whole point is choice. Strangely enough, most of my argument is actually based around who has the right to make these decisions for you, and why should you not have the right to make your own choices?
Yeah, but that's the problem with eugenics in a nutshell, Jensen. It always boils down to it being the government's choice. And when you have a nationalized healthcare system like you guys do, you have signed over your right to choice to the government. I'm surprised you guys are allowed to buy Mountain Dew right now. I mean, are they going to cut that out of your diet soon? Oh, better stop eating fish and chips. You know, you're deep
hang on, Mad Dodge. We're going off on the tangent. Naughty boy. Let's stick to the topic. I know you can't stand the NHS, but I'm sorry, this is not the topic.
Eugenics is part of the topic, and government control.
No, you were going off on the tangent, slagging off the NHS, no matter how disgusting and poisonous it is. Now,
all right, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yes.
I'll hand it off to MC. Go for it, dude.
Okay. While I agree with you, then it comes back down once again to the same thing that I said repeatedly. If you're going to commit suicide, you don't need anybody's help. Everybody's involved. Everybody's already there. All right. I mean, if it's a individual choice, you don't need help. Even for somebody that's a quadriplegic, all right, a quadriplegic, if he's going to make the decision, unless the state or his family or someone is forcing them, all right, to stay alive, then they will end up dead because they don't have to eat, right? They don't have to chew the food. They don't have to swallow unless somebody's force feeding them. In which case, yeah, then you can make a case saying, look, the guy doesn't want to eat. He doesn't want to eat. He runs the risk of dying. Yeah. Okay. I can understand that. All right. But when you talk about whether or not somebody needs help or you need help to help somebody, or that a person that's there isn't of sound mind and they're not looking for an individual choice. They're looking for a social collective choice to absolve themselves of the choice that they want to make. You won't need a doctor to help you out to prescribe something for you if you decide to off yourself. Now, I'm also of the opinion, and I've been of this opinion for a long time, that the federal government and even the state governments, for the most part, right, should be very limited in what material they control and don't control. All right, I don't believe that you necessarily need an FDA to sit up and say this drug's approved or that drug's approved, or should be approved or not approved.
MC, are these chemical tablets? Would you consider them like a chemical weapon?
No, yeah.
Well, I mean, they could be forced onto somebody else, so you could look at them as a chemical weapon from that standpoint. I mean, look, if you want to talk about it, I mean, what's to stop a person from if they want to off themselves, getting into a car and turning the engine on and dying of carbon monoxide poison?
I saw that in House of Cards. I mean,
it's happened in real life several different times in several different areas.
Well, that's provided MC they know what they're doing. Otherwise, they could be in the open, turn the engine on, wait for hours, and wonder why they're not dying.
Okay,
But,
is somebody like that of sound mind?
Probably not, and in which case it probably wouldn't be a bad thing if they did kill themselves. But anyway, we've got a new panel member here at the moment. Common Sense Guy, welcome. If you'd just like to say what side you're on and what your argument is, please, sir.
Well, hello everybody, first of all, to start off with. Thank you for letting me on. I'm actually on pro-euthanasia simply because the reasons why is that if you have somebody that is a vegetative state, or for instance, a specific instance of a lock-in syndrome where literally you were able to walk, you were able to know exactly what life was and everything else like that, but you are trapped inside your own body, but you've put into your own DNR or into your own medical records that if that ever happens that you want to die, because that's your choice beforehand, but you can't physically do it anymore, regardless of if it's the doctor or a family member, you should be able to have that choice still apply to you.
Very good.
That's simply my argument, to be honest with you.
Would anyone like to respond?
Yeah, I'll respond. Let me respond.
Well,
You're in the person finds themselves in that state. What if they change their mind?
Then if they change their mind, then they would be able to communicate that, and then they would change their mind because they would be able to use their eyes to say yes or no. But the thing is that they can't physically and able to commit suicide themselves. They still have capability of using their mind, but they can't actually physically do it themselves due to the condition.
All you have to do in those situations is exactly what they did here in the United States, which is they didn't feed the person.
Isn't that a little bit inhumane of actually just starving a person to death rather than giving them a pill to give to them their family members to do?
If they're in a vegetative state, what difference does it make?
Well,
The
not all
vegetative
states
state
are fully
doesn't.
vegetative.
Hang on.
Yeah,
Even with lock-in syndrome, even with vegetative states, the body itself is still going to deplete. It's still going to show up on the actual people that are with them in their room. It's still going to show up to their family. Why would you put their family away watching them die by starvation rather than giving them a pill? What would be more humane? Watching them starve or watching them after they've been given a pill?
Here in the case that I was referencing here in the United States, it was actually the other way around. You had one person, all right, meaning the guy's wife or husband, former husband, whatever, making the decision, right, where the rest of her family was trying to keep her alive.
Sure, but I'm using a specific instance where a person has decided beforehand that if a certain situation ever occurred, that they would have that choice to be able to have somebody administer something that would kill them in that instance because they could not physically do it themselves. Well, then, I'm using a specific example for that reason.
But once again, then it comes back to if they're not in that situation, if they can communicate. All right, and if they can't communicate, then how do you know when they change their mind?
No, I didn't say that. I said that they can communicate. They can communicate with their eyes to make sure that they still want to do that. If that's still clarification that they can still do that, they still physically cannot do it.
But they're under duress now.
No, they're under the condition that they already have decided that if this ever happens, that they want to kill themselves, and they are confirming it when they're in the condition.
They're under duress now, though, when they're making that decision for the actual decision to do it.
Why are they under duress?
Because they're under a horrible situation. They're not in a normal frame of reference, a normal frame of mind. They're in a situation. They're in a situation that they've never encountered before. Okay, that they don't even know if they can sit up there and actually get through it or not. They are freaking running scared in a situation that they've never actually been through. All right, people say, "Well, I know what it would be like to be blind because I can close my eyes and walk around." No, you don't, because you can always take off that Band-Aid. I know what it's going to be like if I ever went deaf. No, you don't, because at no situation can you ever stop yourself from hearing unless you actually become deaf. You're no longer in the situation where you made that point of reference. And now to say, okay, well, this is what somebody's interpreting. This is between a yes and a no. You're not even sure they're hearing the question correctly if all they're doing is doing eye movements here and there, unless you've gone through an extensive amount of time to be able to verify that this person is an actual thinking individual at that point in time.
I'm guessing you don't know too much about the actual condition lock-in syndrome then.
I've never heard of the lock-in syndrome, but it's not that I don't know about that these situations can happen. All right, because I do understand that there are situations where people get neck injuries where all of a sudden they can't even speak anymore, and they're, like you said, they can just move their eyes left and right, etc., to make the these kind of things. But at that point in time, while it seems horrible, all right, asking someone else to kill you involves somebody else. All right.
Yeah.
It's no longer an individual It's no longer an individual's decision. You are having to involve someone else, and that's what the right is. The right isn't you making the decision. It's the right is I can sit up there and make another person kill somebody.
No, that's not the decision at all.
Hang on.
No.
I want to let other people get in for a minute because I think you two have gone for quite long enough now. Is anybody else on the panel?
Please,
you can make one more point, common sense. One more point.
That's fine. Thank you very much. The point of using the lock-in syndrome is the fact that you can communicate. The point that I was making was that you can make the decision yourself. You are then remaking that decision again, but you physically cannot do your choice. That's the point that I was making.
Okay, but your point, fine. The thing is, though, I don't know about the laws over where you are, but here in the United States, that would be euthanasia. The doctor actually administering the poison. That's illegal in all 50 states. You cannot do that here.
No, that's fair. And I just finished off on the bill. Sorry, there, Bullocks. But it basically says, actually, Section 18, the construction, nothing in this chapter shall be construed to authorize a physician or any other individual to end a patient's life by lethal injection, mercy killing, assisted suicide, or active euthanasia.
Yeah, it's illegal in the entirety of the United States. So the only way you could do that here is MC's idea. Stop feeding them or pull the plug. That's it.
Would Mr. Quinn or Tigerlilly like to respond?
Well, how about Tigerlilly says something? I've been doing a lot of nattering. Does she have an opinion here?
I don't know. I just think that's a horrible thing to do, to make them not just let them. I don't know. Just like not feeding them like that just seems cruel. Just let them go quickly. If you're going to do that.
If you do, is now Mad Dodge, in Oregon, is it considered as a suicide, or is it something different? Because it does also say here it shall not be classified as any form of suicide. I mean, like, is that what we're arguing about? Like, whether suicide itself should be legal?
Well, the Oregon law itself pretty much says a doctor can be present if you want him to be, but it's not required. It's pretty much a prescription. They are treating it like you're going in for a fucking checkup, dude. It's weird.
Okay, well, back open to whoever wants to speak on the panel again.
Well,
okay, but once again, it's not that when you involve another person, okay, that other person is actually doing the act, not you. And that other person is making their own decision to kill you.
Can I make a very controversial analogy?
Go for it.
Okay.
Do it.
So I remember earlier, I mean, it was discussed a little bit that it's like, all right, we're providing a prescription. There are also certain prescriptions for things that can be given, I believe, in the practice of abortion as well. And it's just, if one were to consider, and if we consider that a fetus is a living human being, at what point does it go from being, at what point does a human being stop being a human being? Because if the argument that I hear is, if we're going to use this, it's not an actual human being. At this point, we're prescribing lethal medication to basically end the existence of an individual. Are we considering these folks that are in these terminal ill points, like, are we justifying that they're beyond being living creatures? Or I don't know how to phrase it.
Good. Would somebody like to respond?
Oh, yeah, one of you guys on the pro side can, because, yeah, I'm arguing con, and I argued against abortion as well. I don't think any of these things should be treated lightly. I do believe all human life adds something to the collective knowledge base, at least. I mean, everybody has something to add.
I disagree. And I disagree for the simple fact of... I'm not going to for once. Sorry, B was just butting in there. Right. I disagree because my argument is on the personal choice side of it. It seems to have gone far towards the doctor's side. Now, just a concept, and I know people are probably going to look at me like I'm even crazier than I already know I am. But think of it this way. If you actually have the right and option to commit suicide, if your family knows this, and whether or not they agree with the decision or not, they've accepted it's your decision, then I understand that people are going to be sad that they've lost said family member. But they then they at least have the option of getting together with said family member and celebrating said family member's life, which could possibly get said family member to change their mind. Now, I'm not saying that suicide should be legal because I want crowds of people committing suicide. No, I want it to be the person's choice, and that is all. They can actually do this as a family group, and the family group are able to talk the person, convince them out of it, talk them around, whatever. They should have that option, okay? It's the fact that the person is committing suicide and the sudden loss on the family causes more of the damage. All right, loved ones more than family.
That sounds like a living funeral.
Yes.
Renew.
But that's just it. That was the basis behind my argument back at the beginning. The fact that we've turned it more to the doctor-assisted suicide part. Weirdly, I actually agree with a lot of what you're saying involving the doctor-assisted side. I still think it should be the individual's choice. If it can be celebrated amongst their family, then more the better. That way, the loss is damn sight more mitigated. And sorry, I used the word family and not loved one.
Any of the against want to respond?
Well, but once again, the whole thing was this whole argument started with, okay, if a person wants to commit suicide, what's stopping them? All right. There's nothing stopping a person on their own from offing themselves. All right. Even today, yes, there's a stigma attached to it. All right. And there always will be, because like I said, you don't know what chemicals are going on in the brain. We know that some of these things are genetic. We know that these things can have an effect. All right. Human beings are always we're judgmental creatures in a larger sense, for a variety of reasons. Some of it's genetics, some of it's, part of that programming, some of it isn't. All right. It's impossible to know, just on the outside looking in, what you're actually dealing with, what the situation is, and so forth, whether or not the person was feeling that they need to commit suicide. But when you start adding someone else to help, okay, then you're changing the entire dynamic. Okay, that doesn't mean that there aren't going to be situations that are tragedies. Yes, there are going to be tragedies out there. That's part of the human experience, like it or not. All right, there's going to be tragedies in people's lives, and not everyone gets to do whatever they want with their own body. For example, just because I want to play football, all right, or basketball, even better, basketball. I want to be a basketball player. It doesn't mean that I'll ever play basketball, all right, on a professional level. All right, that's just not ever going to be in the cards for me, because physically I'm 5'6". There's no friggin' way, all right, I'm ever going to make it, or could have ever made it, all right, on a professional basketball team. All right. Does that mean all of a sudden now that we're going to change all the rules because life isn't fair? Life isn't fair.
No, of course not. Of course not. Using your example with the idea of basketball or sports, though you may not be able to make a profession out of it, you can still choose to go play basketball. Not necessarily professional, maybe not even in an actual team, but you can go down to a court and you can play basketball. What you're trying to use as an analogy won't work for people that want to use euthanasia, because euthanasia in itself is taking that decision away from the actual person because they physically can't do it.
Okay, so what about a person who wants to be a card shark and doesn't have hands?
Then he can use his toes if he really wants to. The argument in itself still doesn't count. You can still physically do something about it. The thing is that the people that are going... Sorry?
Oh, I was just saying prosthetics are really good now, MC. We're getting there.
Oh my gosh.
I'm sorry.
All right, so the medical solutions are becoming possible and available now, aren't they?
That still doesn't stop the fact of if somebody's in a vegetated state due to a condition or a broken neck or something like that, that's going to stop them from dying stop them from having something that fixes them anytime soon, is it?
There's a difference.
Yeah, no, actually, common sense guy. MC, real quick, common sense guy. Your original argument with whatever syndrome, where their brain is still active and working. I hate to bring this argument up. I wasn't going to, but they now have ways to hook computers up directly to the brain, and they've shown that you could put your thoughts on screen.
Exactly.
There's a way around that. I mean,
no, but that's exactly
not exactly. I said I want to kill myself over and over again on the computer screen. I mean, they could actually somewhat function and do shit still. Maybe their quality of life would be improved. And then as that improves, maybe they could fix their body.
Maybe so. But the point of the argument is, though, Mad Dodge, is that even if you were able to get all of that and the person still decides that they want to commit suicide but physically cannot, the choice is taken away from them.
No, the ability, they just don't have that ability, and that's one of the things that happens in life. All right?
No, that's not one of the things that happens in life.
No, it is something that happens in life. It is a circumstance that happens. Yes,
it's a special circumstance. It's not a circumstance that happens every day. It's a circumstance that happens very, very small. And you're still taking the right away from that people. Remember, we're not saying...
You're not taking that right away from another person. You're actually giving somebody else a right that you don't have. All right, it's not the right to suicide. If you want to commit suicide, then you just don't have to eat.
Are we comparing bananas to plantains?
Yes, we're comparing suicide to euthanasia, and suicide is not euthanasia, and euthanasia is not suicide.
Well, I'm just saying they're two things that look similar but are different.
In a situation where you have somebody else involved, it's euthanasia. Period.
Exactly.
Right? But you're having that situation. If you're saying that a person is a quadriplegic and can't do it themselves, all right, then they themselves are not the ones actually doing the damage, doing the killing. It has to be done by someone else.
But if it's their decision and their choice to do that, why does it matter? Why does it matter, though? Why does it matter?
Well, because you're under a situation where you're under duress, all right? You're not of sound mind and body.
Oh, my God. If you've already decided beforehand that if a situation was to occur, that you would want to kill yourself, and that situation happens, and you can confirm that you still want to kill yourself, then you are still of sound mind and not under duress.
Yeah, but technically you're not killing yourself. Somebody else is killing you, and they have to live with that for the rest of their lives. Yeah, but that's a technicality and a semantic.
It's not a technicality. It's an actuality.
No, it's a semantic because you can't physically do the killing yourself. So you need
someone else. You're going to sit up there and shift the burden of your death onto somebody else.
No, you physically can't do the burden. You physically cannot do the burden. You can't carry the burden out.
It doesn't then give you a right to shift that burden onto somebody else.
But it's up to the other person if they choose to do that. Just because you said, right, I want my wife to give me the pill to commit suicide, that doesn't mean that she has to do it. But if she so chooses that she wants to take that burden up herself, then why shouldn't she do that for the love of her life? Because he wants it to happen.
Well, how do you know then that she's not doing it to get the insurance money?
Because you've already going to confirm it, as I said before, in certain circumstances with something that's already put in medical records. Not somebody who's just come off the street and gone, oh, my husband's got hit in a car accident. He's now completely tone deaf and completely deaf and vegetated. So I'm going to kill him.
But that's exactly what people have been doing. They've been saying, well, my wife wanted to die, so I killed her. All right.
Where? If it's illegal in every state, where's that been happening?
It's been happening here in the United States, but
it's illegal. So it shouldn't happen in the first place.
And people go to jail for it.
But that's because there's no legislation to say that you need to do it this way.
Because it's impossible to sit up there and go out there and try and put legislation for each and every little possibility that goes down there. Because then you start chipping away at the edges. All right, to sit there and push the.
Do you know how easy it is to make a legislation that could do quite an easy, clean sweep?
How easy is it? How easy it to just not eat? If you're in so much pain, if you're in such a bad situation that you're willing to die, then don't eat.
Fine, but that still means that you're accepting that it's euthanasia then, because other people can actually put into the fact of trying to force feed them.
No, no. There's a difference between taking action and not taking action.
Sorry, MC. Hang on. We're getting you two dominating it again. Does anybody else want to come in here at this moment?
Can I just say something? I'm just saying it now. If I get bit by a zombie, I want one of you motherfuckers to off me. There.
I couldn't do that.
Just saying, I'm telling you now. Fucking kill me. I do not want to live like that.
Zombies are people too?
Zombie rights matter.
Zombies are a threat and must be exterminated. How's that?
I'm a talking walker. I'm a talking walker.
No, like Shaun of the Dead. You just gotta keep your buddy in the tool shed and you play N64 once in a while. Just make sure he doesn't bite you.
Oh God. Like hooked up to a chain and fed hot dogs or something. Fuck that.
Yeah, I'd rather die.
I'd rather die too. Just kill me.
Give me that cricket bat. Give me that cricket bat. I'll do it myself.
Yeah, see, I thought that's what B did with Quinn.
You're a threat to humanity. I have no problem pulling the trigger. Next.
I like JQ.
By the way, just so you
listen,
know,
this is almost like a digital group hug. That's it. Everybody's getting on again. Does anybody else have anything to throw into that little debate that MC and Common Sense were having?
I'm agreeing with MC because basically you shift that burden upon someone else and you make them live with that for the rest of their life, and that is not suicide. That is being killed. Maybe not euthanasia. Murdered.
Stick to the definition, Mad Dodge. That's euthanasia by definition. Yeah.
Well, why don't you go hang out with Singer then? Because she was all for euthanasia as well. Why
does it matter about association? We're going by definition. Definition is not euthanasia. Is not murder. It's a mercy killing.
By whose definition?
By the person who wants to die. By the person who wants to die.
You don't know whether or not that person.
You keep on saying that. We've gone through that argument, MC. No, if you have somebody that has it and wants to die and can confirm they want to die afterwards, they still want to fucking die.
Then they don't get fed. It's that easy.
They don't get fed. They don't get fed. So you're for the moralistic point of saying that somebody else shouldn't have that burden if they so choose to have that burden, but you should let people starve to death.
If people want to starve to death, that is their choice, right?
I'll tell you what, though, if a doctor chooses
that choice,
if a doctor chooses to have that burden, maybe once, okay, I get it. Twice, 3 times, how about 300? You know what? I'm kind of doubting this doctor's morality a little bit, buddy.
Why?
Why? Because it seems like he enjoys handing out the fucking death pills. That's why.
Okay, well, if you have, say, one person that dies every 6 months, right? That's 2 a year. You do that for 20 years, you get 20 deaths. Well, no, you get more than that. Sorry, you get 40 deaths.
Yeah, you get way more than Jack the Ripper got. Good for you. I think the same way
that's
about
still
abortion
compassionate mercy killing.
No.
Compassionate mercy killing.
you don't know what medicine will come out and what advances will be made.
From the information that I have in front of me now, I can make an informed decision to say that if any certain circumstance that happens, and I have the ability taken away from me, I would like my missus or my partner, if she so chooses, to be able to administer something that would kill me. If she so chooses, would that be okay? Could we find common ground on that issue?
I find it a little odd that you would push the blame onto your wife.
No, because I physically can't do it. I physically can't do it. If you're
but then she has to live forever knowing that she killed her husband.
Yeah, but if she says that she wants to, MADDS, it's like, say for instance, you become a paraplegic and your missus needs to look after you. Would you want that burden on your missus? Because that burden would be on your missus regardless.
If she says she wants to kill me, I'd be filing a divorce.
Okay,
but I'm not suggesting. I'm not suggesting she wants to kill you. I'm saying that you've asked her to.
Okay,
there's a difference.
Hold on. What? Let's say she goes through with it. All right, and next year they come up with a revolutionary technique that would have cured you. Would you want that burden stuck on your wife?
Yeah, because at that moment in time, I wanted to fucking die, and I couldn't fucking do it myself.
So how grand and glorious you are that you sit up there and made your wife have to now suffer with the idea that
I didn't make her do anything. I asked her to do it.
Her husband, all right?
I didn't ask her. I didn't force her to do anything. I asked her. Where's the forcing? Where's the coercion? I can't even take a shit by myself.
To deal with the possible burden that she could have sit up there and had.
If she so chooses, yes. If she so chooses, yes.
Well, so it's all on her.
No, I've asked her to do something. I can't force her to do something. If she wants and is able to do it, I would be mostly fucking appreciative. But if she doesn't want to do it, that's on her. But I'm always going to be a burden to her regardless at that point.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Actually, based on your discussion, MC, you're saying about what if a year later there is a cure. She's then got to understand that her husband, partner, whatever, has suffered 365 days of whatever torture they're going through on the off chance that a cure could be found. Now, that in itself, I feel, is a bit questionable, because otherwise you're looking at saying, well, how could you allow somebody to have the button pressed, i.e. turn off life support? For all you know, tomorrow, there could be the cure that cures all cancer. We're going for rather extreme assumptions in the world with that one. Normally, I actually agree with most of the things
you're talking about nibbling at the edges with this decision anyway. This is an abnormal situation in a hypothetical situation to begin with.
It's not a hypothetical, my friend. People want to die every day that have certain diseases and conditions that happen.
And people are insane every day and actually off themselves. But
that doesn't mean that there's a correlation between the two, though, does it?
No. But it's not saying that the situations exist in the norm either.
Yeah, but we're not talking about the norm. We're talking about a situation and dealing with the information that we have in front of us. Is it okay in certain circumstances to be able to be euthanized? Not talking about, well, if you do euthanize them, in a year's time, is it bad that you euthanize them?
The answer to that's going to end up being yes. And the condemnation that's going to be applied is going to be, will be universal. Oh, yes, it will.
Is this a social? Hang on. Mad Dodge wants to say something.
Yeah, real quick. She won't come on the mic. I asked her to, but I asked my wife if I was terminally ill and I asked you to kill me, would you do it? She said no, absolutely not. Now, would I now be forced to try and convince her to do so because I want to die?
No, of course not. No, of course not.
Well, then why are you doing that to a doctor who is sworn to heal people?
No, a doctor is sworn to care. No. Wait. A doctor is sworn to care, not to heal. Doctor is sworn to care. Sometimes the caring and the most empathetic thing you can do is put the animal out of its misery.
Yeah, I agree.
I disagree. Memes, you came back. What say you?
Oh, I was going to say, are humans animals?
Yes. Definitely.
To what extent do we judge ourselves as animals?
No, we judge ourselves not to be animals, but biologically we are animal. We are mammal. We just presume that we are higher than any other animal.
Does that complicate things?
In this situation, yes. For instance, you can put a dog to sleep for certain reasons, and we don't give a shit about that. But when it comes to a human that has already a choice, we give a shit about that. But an animal that can't.
That we give
I was going to say, an animal can't give you an idea. An animal can't tell you that it wants to die, but yet we still take that decision away from it.
Well, aren't we judging that by its state of life? If it's having a terrible go,
exactly means exactly. We take that consideration for ourselves to realize that that animal is not going to have a good form of life, and it's going to be in so much pain that it's not going to benefit anybody bar your selfish self.
We take
as the owner
when we decide to eat it.
No, I'm talking about pets specifically, not animals in general.
Hang on. Sorry, Mings. We've got another panelist here. The Hag has joined us. If you'd like to state your side in this debate, please.
I'm not choosing sides. I have a couple of questions. Because if I choose sides, I'm going to be here a while. Because
Okay,
I didn't start off here. Well, one, specifically towards MC. Your child is in so much pain. You've looked at every medical thing that's out there that has to do with whatever disease that the child has. And you know that your child, well, inevitably, not now, but sometime in the near future, is going to die because of the progression of said disease. But the doctors can't do anything for it because there's no cure.
Okay, what about it?
Would you make your child continuously go through the pain?
I would be worried about making any kind of decision like that because I don't know if I'd be making the decision according to the child's pain or the pain that I'm in, all right, about and a caution on the child. Because watching your child suffer isn't something that a parent ever wants to do. So when if I end up making that, if I make that decision, then am I doing it for the child's welfare, or am I doing it for my own?
Well, that was.
Well, to quickly add to that.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, to quickly add to that, what if the child is screaming out, "I want to die! I want to die! I want to die!" because I'm in too much pain?
Oh, okay. No. Immediately, even me, I would think immediately, okay, what are my options? Because I know that I have children, just like I know there are others in here that do have children. But I'm taking sides. My next question was to Dodge, and I wasn't sure because I've seen him argue both sides. What is your stance?
I've been arguing against assisted suicide. I'm also really against euthanasia. And what I would do in your scenario, the MC, would probably be try to find some experimental drugs to maybe help and see how it played out. I'm not going to kill my kid.
Well, no, I've heard you in the past argue for it, which is why I said that I've heard you argue both sides.
Well, yeah, there's some times where you might be okay with it. But then again, when the scenario that Common Sense Guy keeps bringing up is shifting the guilt upon somebody else. And I'm not okay with that because you don't know how someone might be like, yeah, I'll do it. And then after they do it, they have a nervous breakdown and commit suicide themselves because they can't stand the guilt of killing their significant other. I mean, to even ask somebody to do that, I think is kind of selfish.
And the question I actually had to you was, what if they had some form of pill instead of a injection that the doctors had to give you?
They have a pill. That's what they do in Oregon, is you get a prescription. So not only does the doctor sign off on it, 2 doctors, 3 witnesses. The doctor then gives you the pills that will kill you, but he doesn't hand them to you. You go to a pharmacist who has to go behind a locked door or whatever and get the death pills. And the pharmacist actually is the guy handing it over. Did he sign up to fucking kill people too? This affects a whole lot of people in the chain, is what I'm saying. There's a lot of guilt to be shifted around.
Then your opinion is that in Switzerland, as we know, that there's what is it, Dignitas? Are you saying that you think Dignitas should be shut down, Mad?
I don't know what that is. Elaborate, please.
All right, no problem. Dignitas is a clinic that is actually dedicated to euthanasia and assisted suicide. So are you saying that that should actually be shut down? Seeing as the people that are actually going there to be euthanized are doing it of their own choice. Oh, apparently some of them actually do it themselves, but your opinion?
But yeah, that was
well. My first opinion would be I'm not a citizen of that country, so I couldn't shut it down if I wanted to. My real opinion is if there's a place like that in the United States, yes, I would like it shut down.
Okay, that's fair. That's all I want to know, mate. Thank you.
I mean, we could have a giant tent with Jim Jones handing out Kool-Aid. I mean, I guess that would be the same thing, right?
No, not really. Not unless they agreed that they wanted to do it.
They agreed. Most of them did. I mean, not the children,
yeah,
but
under a cult ideology. Yeah, not an ideology of coming forth by themselves and deciding that they want to get in contact.
They thought they were of sound mind and body. They thought they were doing
didn't. They were under the influence of a cult. We're talking about people that are not under the influence of anything, bar sound mind and having the decision themselves.
How do you know they're not? They thought that.
How do you know that you don't know that you do know that you don't know? How do you know that you do or don't know?
No. You're the one making the assumption here.
You're making.
You're making the assumption that they don't know. You're making the assumption they don't know.
No. I want to elaborate on this.
Try not to talk over each other because you're getting a lot of voices over each other. So try and speak.
I want to elaborate. Yeah, I want to elaborate a little bit on this. These people believe the cult was their family. Now, you could say the cult was indoctrinating them. Fine, I agree. But check it out. Your family could also indoctrinate you. Your family could be tired of caring for you and go, you really should do this. Look at these pamphlets. And they could talk you into it. Maybe you have a nice will or life insurance policy that you've had for 40 years, something around the $5 million mark. But, they're not being indoctrinated or swayed in any way whatsoever. Not at all.
You done?
Yeah, go ahead.
So you're saying that your family members themselves would be the ones that would be indoctrinating you into killing yourself, which would be different to euthanasia, which would be murder, not euthanasia. So well done on your definitions and understanding of them.
Well, you just said the same thing about the fucking cult.
Let me take this on. You said that the person is making this decision early on and they're writing it down. But what's that if they're under these situations? What influences them to make that decision under these situations? What pressures have been involved in that? All right, we don't know. When is pressure, all right, an external pressure, or you're under the influence or not under the influence? It comes down to this question. All right, what are the situations that you're dealing with? And the Jim Jones logic when you're talking about the adults, in my opinion, is very apt, because It was influence, yeah, but these people are either responsible as adults or they're not responsible as adults.
Does that mean that you think everybody that was killers for the Manson family were of sound mind and body then?
Yeah, I think every
They're
single
still
one
in prison, aren't they?
I think every single one of them should have been executed if you want to know the honest God truth.
Personally, I think that they're completely and utterly indoctrinated. But I still think they should be punished, but they're absolutely indoctrinated. They didn't do anything under their own free will.
It is their own free will. They're either adults or they're not. At what point do you sit up there and hold people accountable
I was
for
waiting
their
for
decisions?
that. I was waiting for that specific moment. Thank you very much. So if they're accountable under the idea of indoctrination, then they're accountable to be able to accept the death penalty from their own family, then are they not? By your definition.
Well, hold on. The definition of pressure is the issue, though, right? Are they under undue pressure or not?
No, you said that if somebody... Hang on. You said that if somebody is indoctrinated to go and kill people, that they are under their own free will to go and do it. So if they're indoctrinated to go and have themselves killed by somebody else, in your opinion...
I don't think that's right either.
But you said that they are under... No. The point is not if it's wrong or right, my friend. The point was...
The point when you're
let me finish my point, please. Let me finish my point, please, so you can understand what I mean. If you think that they were able to be sound body and mind and be incarcerated for committing murder, then what's the difference in if you were asking somebody to commit murder onto you, in your opinion?
There is no difference. Both of them
then
are
you
wrong.
have no problem with euthanasia then. Well done.
No, I do have a problem with euthanasia because euthanasia is wrong in any situation. Okay, it doesn't matter what the situation is, whether or not a person is sound mind or not. By giving someone else the right to sit up there and make a life and death decision for yourself.
That's not what euthanasia is.
That is exactly what euthanasia is. Yes,
no, it's not. Euthanasia is already deciding that you've going to. Sorry, no, you are correct. You are correct.
Thank you.
No. And straw man, anybody? Because you made
How
the
the fuck is that a straw man, Mad Dodge?
No.
You were the guys that were saying that murder is okay if you're indoctrinated, not me.
Now I can't talk. Can I talk now? Yeah.
Speak your words.
Because I at least let you on here. Anyway.
You can get me off, mate. You can get me off.
No. Do we need ad homs? Oh dear. Well, that's never happened on the internet. So yeah, I've been talking to my brother for like the past 5 minutes, not about any of this stuff, of course. But now, well, here's the thing: when is it okay to take a life? I've heard different examples given. And I think CSG's example, it was a very particular example, just because like my cousin, he worked with a dude that literally, like, he was good like up to like his early 30s or so. Then he just ended up having this horrible muscular dystrophy, and the guy's just over 50 years old now, and just like he's aged just progressively faster. And I mean, he basically can't really operate on his own. He can pretty much just be assist fed, but he can still communicate. Basically, he has like a little laser pointer he puts on his forehead, and he can actually type stuff out on the computer. And it's just like, if you're going to think of certain cases where somebody may want to exercise that, it's like, all right, maybe he's not going to die within the next 6 months. At what point should a person have the ability to do that? Should that be something that's available to them? Like if something bad happens and all of a sudden it's like, well, he's been having some lung problems again or something. It's like, if it's reasonable, then is that the point? But it's just every case that usually comes to our minds is a little bit different, and if we haven't personally experienced it, I mean, it can be very hard to kind of understand what another person's been going through. Just like living a day, living a freaking year, living an entire lifetime in another person's shoes. It can be hard to relate. If you know the person, maybe it's easier, but it's just, we're talking about all different degrees of separation and different levels of morality that we're trying to legislate.
You're roboting. I can't hear you.
Well, no, and my point, though, I was trying to make was he made the argument that it's not euthanasia, what Jim Jones did. I believe all euthanasia was wrong. I was trying to make the argument that they were both the same thing. And then he shifted and tried to say he trapped MC, but he created a straw man in the very beginning with that argument. That's what I was trying to say. If he wants to rage quit, then rage quit. I don't give a shit.
Well, he's not here to defend himself, so we'll try not to get into that one.
Okay.
But, MC, do make your point, sir.
Okay. Can you guys, am I still roboting?
No, you're fine.
Okay. what we're talking about in all these cases are individual, small little individual cases here and there. Okay. But what you're looking for is a societal solution. And I don't think that from a societal standpoint, when you're making it from a broad-based societal standpoint, I don't think that that making the decision to say, well, in all these cases here, in all these little cases, whether or not this should be allowed or not allowed. It should, from a societal standpoint, it should always not be allowed. Now, in our system, in the system that we have here in the United States, and I'm pretty sure that this is generally true of also what you're dealing with in Great Britain. All right, we have judges and you have prosecutors that have prosecutorial discretion. And they can make, and they often do in these situations, make the decision whether or not to go ahead and prosecute a decision or not prosecute a decision. And they're doing that on a case-by-case, individual basis, because that's how our society has set these systems up. By asking for a change to that societal system, all right, takes that discretionary individual basis, one-on-one basis, away. And that's what I'm arguing against. Because you're still always going to run into the case where, yes, a person was suffering. He was obviously suffering. Another person stood up there and took it upon themselves to end the suffering for a variety of reasons. And when the prosecutors looked at it, they may decide, well, no, this person actually just killed this person or not. And it should be left up to that specific type of an environment from a societal standpoint.
So it should be a communal thing.
No, the communal thing it's not a communal thing. It's an individual decision.
Well, based upon their inner communities.
Based upon the fact that there are people that we've decided within the laws to sit up there and have that kind of discretion. But
well, that's the thing. We're legislating morality. At what point?
We're not legislating morality in this.
Are we?
No, you're saying that that human life is precious and it should never, from a societal standpoint, human life is always precious. Just because somebody is a prosecutor decides not to prosecute someone, all right, doesn't change the social construct and the social contract, right, that we're all still living under.
That's true, but is taking of one's life a breaking of the social construct by way of breaking the law?
Yes, it is. But once again, an individual gets to make that determination of whether or not they're going to have the prosecutorial determination, which is where we're at today, which is where it should remain. I'm saying that there's no reason for taking it away from the prosecutorial decision-making process.
Should we charge a person who attempts to take their life but fails?
Yes.
And they don't necessarily get charged, do they? They usually go get help, right?
Once again, yes, it's up to the prosecutor whether or not they get charged or not. Prosecutorial decisions are left up to an individual within our society that we've deemed worthy. However, whether they're actually worthy or not is a debatable discussion from time to time. All right, but from a societal standpoint, the society's decision as a whole remains the same. This is wrong.
Well, no, we do have stuff like do not resuscitate orders and stuff like that, to where you can fill that out ahead of time. I'm not going to, completely say everything common sense guy said was ridiculous. It wasn't. But I still don't think you should shift the burden upon somebody else, and that's what euthanasia does. That's the definition of somebody else actually doing the killing, right?
I almost feel like we're missing some connective tissue here. And by that, what I mean is like, all right, we're going from the point of just folks that want to end their life. We're adding the stipulations of they could reasonably be thought to not have like another 6 months or so, and just working in through that. Just we often are disagreeing about, it's like, all right, do they really not have a chance? Was this only by 2 individual doctor's visits over the course of 15 plus days? This seems very rushed here. And just when we break it down, it's like every situation's a bit different. Like, would we feel better about discussing this if we had a connecting point, basically before the point of there's only potentially 6 months left? How has this person got here? Would that involve maybe some extra like mental health working within the system, basically better healthcare and folks actually being able to come forward, like avoiding different social stigma. So maybe you can diagnose and work with a person before they get to this point, potentially. Like, I don't know, better additional care for like our fellow like citizens and stuff like that, because if it's going to end up costing us a lot of money, just like going through all this, especially if somebody tries something, especially if they fail, okay, could you go after them? Sure. But it's like, you want this person to actually come back. It's like, I have different friends, like they basically like have overdoses and stuff. And
what's wrong with allowing the state, the prosecutorial decision making for this?
Well, I never said there was.
Well, then what are we trying to change?
Is it just a social stigma? Because I mean, you are still breaking the law.
You're always going to have a social stigma attached to this.
Well, yeah, and like I wanted to, like last time that was brought up, I wanted to say something, but didn't get the chance. Why shouldn't suicide be taboo? We don't want fucking people every time they're a little bit depressed for a while killing themselves. Like, suicide should be looked down upon, right? I think as a society, that's a good thing we do.
So just to clarify, and except I may be wrong here, doing a bit of a means there, but you are saying that the person's individual rights don't matter.
No, I'm saying they could do whatever they want, obviously. One of my good friends killed himself. But should it be looked down upon as a society? Yeah, it should. There is a lot goes because.
No. You don't get to say because. Why?
Okay. Why? Because we don't want everybody who's a little bit depressed as a teenager killing themselves because, oh, Uncle Jimmy did it, oh, my cousin did it, all these other people did it when they were just a little bit depressed. You could work through things and come through the other side as a better person. We all go through dark times. We all have a bad month or a bad year. There's no reason to kill yourself. You can push through it and achieve something greater on the other side. That's why it should be looked down upon, I believe.
Please remember, there is a huge difference between being a little bit depressed and having depression. Would you mind clarifying your opinion on those 2 points, please?
I still think you can come through depression as well. I think a lot of the medication they give actually makes depression worse. I've never had depression. I can't necessarily really speak on it, and it's a touchy issue. And I'm not gonna say something that's gonna put my foot in my mouth here.
Okay, no, fair point. But as someone who is depressed, I would like to point out that a lot of the pills they give you don't cure your depression. They just make you numb to everything. So you're not curing anything. All you're doing is, for want of a better, shoving a band-aid over a fucking great big hole that is holding things together, that is not making the quality of life of said individual any better by any stretch.
Maybe you real quick, Jensen, maybe you misheard me.
Job, man. Come on, I was literally halfway through my sentence. Please. Thank you. Right. The point is, mate, is that depression and feeling depressed is vastly different, and the medication they give you at this point isn't necessarily making their lives any better. They're merely making it numb to what is going on. Now, please do your part.
And this is why I was trying to cut you off. I think you misheard me. I said the medication isn't necessarily doing any good. It might be doing a lot of damage. I think you misheard me. That's why I tried to cut you off.
I know, okay, no, fair play. But in that situation, should the individual who is now medically registered as fully depressed, and I'm not just talking feels a bit down, I'm talking sits there with a razor blade next to their wrist on a regular occasion, do you not think that they should have the right to make that final decision? And yes, I understand MC's point. They could just go and do it and no one could do dick about it. But the point is, there's still the whole, it's wrong to kill yourself, but yet it's still acceptable for society to declare other people as viable targets. At what point does your morality allow that as an acceptable thing, sir?
My morality, governments considering people targets. Do you not hear me rail against that almost every day? You know where my morality stands. Life is precious and it shouldn't be taken lightly. And I stand by that. And I think the social stigma might be the only thing keeping some people alive. Maybe that's a good thing.
Interesting. Okay, all right. I'll accept your opinion on that. I won't try and force my opinion on you.
Well, I'm moderating tonight, so I'm reserving my opinions. But it's a very interesting little discussion between Mr. Quinn and Mad Dodge there. Does MC or Tiger have any opinions on that? And that includes you, Memes. You're not on the timeout at the moment.
Go ahead, Tigerlilly.
I'm not really okay with someone killing themselves, like committing suicide. Like, I would rather people try to get help for that. But with euthanasia, my thing is I pretty much am okay with someone trying to end their suffering, say with a terminal illness where there's just no hope. Does that make sense?
Well, no, absolutely. That's why, like, I was kind of putting it out there, like, are we missing like that connective tissue, like a layer kind of like before this? Like, if somebody really is just like working through something and over a year or so they find out maybe they have 6 months to live, like if there was more like, I don't know, just a knitting together, a better connective tissue of just end of life care, whether it's just extending it out through online communities or just like whatever, just having folks be able to like have and share similar experiences might get people a better understanding of what's going on. And if you just had a network of healthcare professionals, I don't know how the hell you do it. I ain't a healthcare dude, but like, just, I believe we are better together. Just basically being able to access the knowledge of just additional extra folks to like try to find solutions. I don't think we leverage people enough at just being able to get inputs from all different perspectives, help fill in the gaps. I mean, call it data, call it whatever you want, but just, I think we all have something to contribute.
Should we be encouraging no hope solutions?
Who defines it as no hope? And then we could delve down into the disagreement category again.
Once again, but that's the whole point. All right. So, everyone looks at this and saying this person they're suffering. This person has no hope of survival. They're going to be dead in 6 months and they're in so much pain they have no hope. Should we be encouraging that aspect of humanity?
We're trying to legislate morality. Then that's just
once again, we're not. When you talk about legislating morality, not killing another person because you're angry is legislating morality. What's wrong with that?
Can I just ask, sorry, MC, to butt in there, but are you sort of worried that if such a scenario came up, that if somebody was saying given a diagnosis of a terminal illness and was saying, like they said, 6 months to live, and they would be in extreme pain for that 6 months, and the option was there to euthanize them, would you consider that in the same sort of sense of the way that if you have a sick animal, they would just automatically put it to sleep? And you're worried that they will sort of have the same attitude towards humans, which is, well, they're ill, they're not really much use to society, and it'll just cost X amount of money to keep them alive.
You are increasing that aspect, yes.
Yeah,
and that
you're worried about that kind of level of sort of state interference.
For when you're making, once again, we're trying to change a social dynamic. Okay, we're not trying to change an individual dynamic. We're trying to change a social dynamic for individual circumstances that our society already has mechanisms, all right, to actually handle, and more or less effectively. Is it a perfect system? No. But if you try and legislate that system, the ability then for other people, just the way human beings are, is it will be abused. And that abuse is far worse, all right, than the solutions that exist today.
No, that's fair enough. I just wanted to make it I just wanted to make sure everybody was clear on your side of the argument. That was all. And does anybody want to counter that, or anybody want to agree with that?
No. To be fair, it's based on my original argument of free will. I actually agree with MC. He has the right to believe the way he wishes. I'm not actually going to try and change his mind. See, this is the thing with this debate. I've not been trying to change your mind. I've just been trying to put across why I think the way I think. Now, I don't know if I've come into this the wrong way, but yes, thank you, B. The point is that he has all of you have the right to your own opinions. I would never try to force an opinion on someone. I just feel that society's forcing its opinions on people who are making the conscious choice to end their life. That is what should be removed. The person should have the right to choose themselves.
But societies always make pushes and decisions and push on other people. That's the whole purpose behind a society. We're not just individuals, we're also social animals as well. And in order to get along with one another, we have to have certain established rules that we establish amongst ourselves. Of course, there's going to be time periods where a lot of these decisions, all right, from an individual's perspective, aren't what the individual would find optimal at that point in time, for whatever reason. But that is part of being in a society. All right, there's nothing wrong with a society that sits up there and has established rules and then living by those rules and enforcing those rules. Now, once again, especially in the current society that we have, we're at the point now where we're nibbling at the edges of things, and like a lot of social change that you look at, while it looks good from an individual standpoint, from a societal standpoint, is society going to be better off with this decision? As a whole, for the group, we already have mechanisms within our society to handle the individual situations as we develop. Is it perfect? No, but if you're looking for a perfect solution, you're going to be always disappointed, because there's never going to be such a thing.
Are we promoting for the general welfare?
Promoting the general welfare is a completely different dynamic. I don't even see how that applies here.
But didn't you say we're trying to make a better society? So wouldn't this qualify under promoting the general welfare? It's not national defense.
The general welfare of the society, as in them not killing themselves, I would say yes. I mean,
is an individual suffering? I mean, is that if they're suffering, if we are...
What do you consider suffering, though? Because Jenson's argument covers all suicides.
Well, that's we all have our different thoughts.
Is it physical? Is it Parkinson's disease? Like, should Michael J. Fox tie a noose up on the rafters? I mean, what are we talking about here?
Well, that's the thing. We cannot know another's pain unless we've experienced it ourselves. So it's like everyone's framework is going to be a little different.
Even if we experience another person's pain per se, it doesn't mean we're going to make the same decision, because we're already individual.
Oh, that's true. Right? But
and so for individual actions in making a personal decision to say, okay, that person made a decision. In our society, we sit up there and encourage people to be free thinkers. We encourage people to make their own decisions. We still do that. However, we also sit up there and recognize the fact that not all the decisions people make are necessarily good, and we also recognize the fact that there is such a thing as pressure and so forth. All right, that can be unduly applied. All right, you have situations where we use the term brainwashing, like the Jim Jones cult, and so forth. We recognize that these are not aspects that are good in our society, or that are good for the individual, nor the social dynamic. So the question really that we're arguing is whether or not we need to change what society has currently, within the Western society, has currently deemed respectable or not respectable, as being helpful or not helpful. And my point is, and continues to remain, that by going down the assisted suicide route, right, what you're doing is you're changing the dynamic for when life is precious, and you're eroding that significantly and giving other people then an individual ability that they don't currently have, and that's to take another person's life. Now, if a person wishes to commit suicide, okay, there's lots of reasons people commit suicide. Unfortunately, the main reason is because they're not in a mentally healthy position. All right, that is the primary reason people commit suicide, is they see it as an easy out, and they take that as an easy out. All right, should we always be encouraging from a societal standpoint, not an individual standpoint, all right, but from a societal standpoint, should we be encouraging that? No, from a society standpoint, I can't see how we should be encouraging that. Now, on an individual case-by-case basis, do we actually prosecute that and use the force of law involved? We have dynamics that already have what we call prosecutorial discretion. It doesn't have to be applied, okay, in every single individual, and we then assign individuals as a society, individuals to make that determination. Is it perfect? No, people are fallible. No matter what you do within these scenarios, people are going to be fallible, and the situation is going to remain. So the question is then, by making this decision, by changing this dynamic, are things improved overall for society or not improved? Because it's a social decision. And in my opinion, it's not improved.
No, that's a fine outlook, MC. I think the area where we're kind of just like running a bit afoul is, okay, what particular scenario are we talking about? You're talking about it on a very individualistic scenario. It's just, I think there are a lot of folks out there, like, if that is the law and if it is written that way, and basically not having the particular alternative in which we're discussing here, by whatever means it is, that's a different conversation. But having the means available versus them actually doing it, there are a number of folks that you can say, okay, they would really want to do that, they will do it anyway. That's fine. I mean, there are some folks that will do that, but well, the thing is, some folks, depending on the situation, being able to take their own life, if they have a muscular degenerative disease, but they still have cognitive function, basically like one of the clients that my cousin cared for that I met, I went out to lunch and stuff with him. It's like that situation is going to be different than like another person's situation. Because
I don't disagree with you, but are the means already available for someone else to walk up to that individual and put a bullet in their head? Not legally, no. But well, that's murder. But that's the point. The point of prosecutorial discretion is to sit up there and alleviate that. Yes, another person taking that risk, okay, yeah, that person is making a risk. If you decide that a family member is in too much pain, Sherardi's scenario, right, that your child is just in too much pain and suffering, and that it's the only way that you feel that you can end that child's suffering. So a family member basically kills their child, all right, or kills their loved one, right? Let's say it's an older parent who's going through dementia and so forth, all right? What we're saying is okay, that's all well and good, but it's still wrong for you to do that. It doesn't prevent you from doing it. You can physically do it. You are taking the risk and saying, I'm going to allow somebody else, all right, to either validate my decision or not validate my decision. I am going to be willing to take that risk. We're a society that's one of the benefits of this as well. You want a society necessarily of risk takers. You don't want an antiseptic society that tells you how to live or not, how not to live. And when people make that decision and pull the trigger and actually, kind of not that came out not how I meant it, but make the decision to say, you know what, I need to help this person end their life. All right, it's an individual decision, and they're going to be judged for it. Now, whether or not they get charged for it, we have mechanisms that'll sit up there and go, okay, we're going to have a prosecutorial mechanism to say whether or not somebody says this is worth trying this person or not. Whether or not this is a crime viewable by society or not. All right, or rises to that level. That's what basically prosecutorial decision is.
No.
Why should we change that? Why should we sit up there and say, you know what? In all these cases, we'll just allow it? Because the reason you don't want to change these things, especially willy-nilly, all right, is because other people will then use that as an excuse to kill other people, all right, and then claim, okay, well, this person was in pain, so I got rid of them. See, the cure is worse than the disease. If you go down the right, down to the point of saying, okay, euthanasia is okay, well, then you've got to sit up there and start running around. Well, it was okay in this situation, but not in this situation. You start nibbling away with the entire concept. If society says it's always wrong, but we leave it up to an individual to make it, that we determine to make the prosecutorial decision making on it, right, to go forward or not. This has always been the case. It's the same thing with you kill somebody. If I shoot somebody in my house right now, all right, what's going to happen? They're going to have somebody that's going to decide whether or not I committed murder or whether or not I was defending myself. And they're going to have prosecutorial decision making. We've assigned people to make prosecutorial decision making over that process. That's what you're dealing with in this situation as well.
MC, are you familiar with the movie Old Yeller?
Yes.
Okay. Have you ever watched the final scene? Because I haven't.
Yes, I've seen the Old Yeller all the way through.
Okay. I don't think people like that.
Well, welcome to life. There's a lot of things that happen in life that we don't like.
Can we avoid putting people in positions where they have?
There are always going to be situations where this arises. You want a perfect world. The world's never going to be perfect.
I think we can do better.
Yeah,
why do you think we can do better? Because you want there to be a better world?
Well, because we're human beings. We adapt, we overcome, dude. That's in our nature. That's because I think if we can prolong avoiding destroying all of humanity, I think we can do great things.
Okay. Do we always do great things?
Oh, hell no.
Have we stopped war?
No.
Okay. Have we stopped all disease?
Not yet. We're working on it.
Does anybody else want to come in there who hasn't spoken for a bit? Mr. Quinn or Mad Dodge?
Well, based on what MC was saying, the whole concept of the better world, it's a dream that we all want, though in all fairness, I am definitely of the opinion that it is not going to happen. Now, the whole thing about have we destroyed disease? No, but we have destroyed some diseases. But equally, we've also created brand new ones which are a damn sight more efficient at killing us. So is the world a perfect place? Not by any stretch of the imagination. Even to someone who deals with depression and sees things darker than others do, I accept that this world is not anything close to a good place. Once you get past that and actually accept it, things are actually a damn sight easier.
You gotta take the good with the bad.
Yeah, no, I was looking at the chat. Cabbage Patch is in the chat. He said, what about a DNR? Or what about Jehovah's Witnesses refusing treatment on religious grounds? That isn't making the doctor choose whether the patient lives or dies, especially not the DNR. You come in there, you have no heartbeat, you're pretty much dead. They can try and save you. Or if you have a do not resuscitate, they just walk away. That's not putting them in a position where they took your life, which is what assisted suicide.
Saving, or at this point, technically bringing back. I mean, is that renew? Just because, like, I have friends like they've done that too.
I'll never sign a DNR. I like life. I want to live, so you won't see me signing one of those. But I think my mom has one actually. So yeah.
Cool, that was good English.
Yeah. Just the moment where you don't have work. I mean, dude. Every situation's different. I mean, people should have a personal choice, but it's like, again, I go back to it. It seems like we're trying the best we can to try to legislate morality in a way, and just anytime one tries to legislate morality, it never really seems to go that well.
It does go well. We don't murder one another.
Well, no, well, that's a good thing, but we've generally stopped murdering each other for a while. I mean,
the idea that somehow that that morality is something that you can't legislate. All right, it's a ridiculous concept. Societies always legislate the morality to one degree or another.
Well, culture is a precursor.
Regardless of what it is. So this idea that somehow there's something inherently wrong with legislating morality is nonsense. Why is it wrong to legislate morality to begin with? Now, can there be bad effects to that? The difference isn't legislating morality. The problem where you see a lot of things fail is when you're trying to legislate culture, when you're trying to use legislation to get an outcome within the entire society, or try to drive society toward one outcome versus another. All right, but to sit up there and put guardrails in place, which is a type of legislation of morality, there's nothing necessarily wrong with that.
But
in and of itself,
it isn't. I mean, do we need to have legislation? I thought in general we should avoid having to legislate, which we can bestow upon individuals or the individual states as well.
Do we all believe the same thing?
Well, I think this is the underlying issue we're running into now.
Answer the question. Do we all believe the same thing?
I don't think so. It would depend on the thing, and would depend upon the degree, dude. It's like we're complicated creatures.
I just want to point out, this is where the con side is going to break apart and attack each other. So Jensen and Tigerlilly might win by default here.
That's pretty much what I expected to happen, if you want to know. I don't mean to be pissy, but I could see it getting to this stage very easy.
Well, you see, technically on my scoreboard, they've already won, but I was hoping that Mad Dodge and MC would get some points back in the swimwear section, but neither of them are willing to appear on camera, so I think they've already lost that one. But is there any other points that either Mr. Quinn or Tigerlilly wanted to bring up?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Apparently, B might want to bring up a point. I don't know if this is good or bad.
Is it legal?
Oh goodness!
Is he going to get his channel shut down if she appears on camera? Because if she is, please do so.
Hopefully, she's just going to come over and talk at my computer, but for some reason, she's walked around the other end of the bloody room.
Right. Okay.
But we still end up with the same situation. Is your solution better for society or not?
Are you going to find solutions now?
But you guys are offering a solution. You're saying that it should be legalized, that it should be authorized. That's your solution.
B has chosen to step out from this one.
Yeah. So just for a brief moment of levity. This is a Mad Dodge Productions news alert. Apparently, Clinton Foundation donations are down 90%.
Okay.
Is that basis for committing suicide?
For Hillary? Maybe I might switch sides if Hillary and Nancy Pelosi decided to. Yeah.
Good. And we're back into the situation.
Luckily, Bill has so many STDs, he's going to die anyway, so you don't have to worry about that. But I believe you had a good point there, Memes.
Wait, what?
Before the Clinton comment, I believe there was something very, very good coming.
Oh. It depends upon the situation?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, that's what we're arguing about.
No, it's not. It's not. It doesn't depend upon the situation. It's how the situation is handled.
But MC, I don't think anybody liked the end to Old Yeller. This is one of the reasons I haven't watched it. It's just the situation you laid out, MC. I understand where you're coming from, but just that was such a terrible thing.
Okay.
Wait, how do you even know? You didn't see it? Like, have you watched Where the Red Fern Grows or read that book?
Maybe.
That's even worse.
Oh, I read that one.
Spoilers.
One dog dies by a mountain lion. Anyway,
but that's nature. That's not having to take your poor dog.
There not to be there not to be tragedy in the world? That somehow you're going to prevent tragedy?
I loved Lassie.
I didn't ask that question.
Oh God. Right, so now this is descending into bestiality. Can we keep it on topic, please?
What?
Wait a minute, Bollocks. You kind of took that in an odd direction. I don't think anybody would go
it did come out of Meme's mouth in my defense, MC. Didn't it? They would not have batted an eyelid.
She had an
For all we
amazing
know,
coat as a border collie on that show. She was well taken care of.
Yeah, for all we know,
Memes
Mrs. XXXXX Mrs. Memes was actually called Lassie.
See what's happening? He's got off this. He's jumped the shark. He's off the rails.
Yes, he's jumped the furry. But yes, I mean, how would you feel in that respect then, Memes? If if they euthanized Lassie, would you be in a bit of an emotional state?
I would be very sad, but I mean, at that point, if the gal she was hurting and stuff, I mean, oh dear.
What if you could make safe?
Why are you drawing an equivalence between an animal and a human being?
Because some people treat animals better than other human beings.
Okay, so why that doesn't explain why you're conflating human beings with animals. You're making a false analogy to begin with.
There's a horse suing for civil damages.
There's not a horse suing for civil damages.
Okay, maybe it's criminal. I don't know, but there's a horse suing somebody.
There's not a horse making a lawsuit anywhere, shape, or form.
There is a horse that actually has a lawsuit. MC, this is
the
point we're at.
Making a lawsuit on behalf of other people.
Was Bill O'Reilly right?
Oh, no, wait, real quick.
I'm just picturing. Yeah, I'm just picturing in California somewhere, Mr. Ed taking their their owner to court because of potential euthanasia.
Wilbur used to beat me.
Don't kill me, Wilbur.
No, Wilbur, not to the glue factory. Stop, Wilbur, stop.
Oh, God.
Gray Smith Mail said something pretty funny in the chat. He said, don't worry, Memes. If you break your leg, he'll be sure to shoot you. So he's got your back, buddy.
What, Mr. Ed?
No, it's Gray Smith Mail. He's volunteering to freaking injure misery.
Yeah. Maybe we should change your name from Memes of Destruction to Soon to Be Glue.
Is it Elmer's?
Can be. Could be Gorilla Glue.
Gorilla Glue's better.
Everybody
it's more
loves
effective.
Yeah. Okay.
To return back to the conversation we was meant to be having, I think I've put my point across that I was trying to say. Tiger, what about you? Do you think you've said what you needed to say?
Yeah, pretty much. I'm done. Yeah.
Okay, no problem.
Are you satisfied with the discussion, Mr. Quinn?
Actually, yes. I really enjoyed the conversation, and seeing the whole point of this stream was about the debate, not necessarily the end of the debate. I think we've done pretty damn well. We've had a full and, above all, vaguely intelligent conversation about a very serious subject.
Good. What about you, MC? You reasonably satisfied?
Yep.
Good answer. That's the best answer yet. What about you, Mad Dodge?
Yeah, good. I'm going to be on Irate Prostate's channel tonight at 8 o'clock Pacific anyway, so we should probably wrap up soon.
Okay, and finally, Memes, before we melt you down.
Oh, God.
Get the vat. Fire it up.
The point where we got to Lassie is I'm lost.
Okay, that's good. I didn't want anybody to feel uncomfortable with this little discussion tonight. Well, I think that went reasonably well. I'm glad that I didn't really have to do very much except interrupt occasionally. So this is my kind of stream. I must do this more often. This has been the discussion on euthanasia, suicide, assisted suicide. I hope you all enjoyed it, and I hope you're all feeling pretty happy. And I hope nobody in the chat is feeling particularly depressed at the moment, because anything that happened on this discussion tonight, we will not take any blame for your own attempted suicides. But thank you all for coming this evening, and do come again sometime, especially if I'm moderating, because it will be better than normal. Mad Dodge, if you'd like to press the button, please.